Okay, so there's a couple ways you could have approached number 1. It's asking us which graph represents the solution to this inequality. The first thing I would want to notice, since I do have 4 choices here to narrow down from, is that I have a greater than or equal to. So I should have a solid line. So based on my 4 choices, choice 2 and 4 are dashed lines. So I can get rid of them. Then if I take a look at choice 1 and 3, now I really need to determine, are these the same lines? They both have an intercept of 3, a y-intercept, and they appear to have a slope of positive 2, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So they're the same line. I just really need to determine where the shading would be. So I'm going to check the test point 0, 0 in my original inequality. So is 9 minus 3 times 0 greater than or equal to negative 6 times 0? Is 9 greater than or equal to 0? And this is true. So what that means is that the shading should be over the point 0, 0. And if we take a look at choice 1, that is where the shading is. So choice 1 is the answer. Okay, number 2, which inequality is represented by the accompanying graph? Well, this is a constant line for y, so y is constant. So I know it's going to be some inequality with y, which all 4 choices have. So now I need to look at where is y constant. So I go up here and I see this is a y value of 3. So it's a dashed line, so I can get rid of choices 3 and 4. They would both be solid lines. And now I'm looking at, is y greater than 3 or is y less than 3? So I can see here that the shading is over the point 0, 0. So that means that 0, 0 should be true. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y and see which inequality here is true. Is 0 greater than 3? That's false. 0 is less than 3. That's true. So if the inequality y is less than 3, choice 2. Okay, for question 3, we're being asked which inequality represents this graph. So the first thing I would do is look at the graph and see what the inequality is. So I can see here that it has a y-intercept of 0. And if I look at the next nice point, my slope's going up 4 over 6. So I have a y-intercept of 0, I have a slope of 4 over 6, and I have to determine if this is going to be a greater than or a less than sign because it is a dashed line. I also can simplify the 4 over 6 to be 2 over 3. And I also don't need this plus 0. So now I'm just going to test a point to see if this is y is less than 2/3 x or y is greater than 2/3 x. I'm going to pick a point 4, 6. So if I plug in 4, 6, because that's something in the shaded area, that's up here, is 6, let's try greater than 2/3 times 4. So is 6 greater than 8 over 3? And this is true, so I know it's this inequality. So now I know exactly what inequality is graphed, and now I need to look at my 4 choices and determine which of these 4 choices simplifies to be y is greater than 2/3 x. So I'm going to start with choice 1. I'm going to isolate y, so I get 2y is less than 3x by adding the 3x over. Divide by 2, I get y is less than 3 over 2x. And I'm looking for y is greater than 2/3 x, so that's incorrect. Choice 2, I have 3y is less than positive 2x. Divide by 3, y is less than 2 over 3x. Again, I am looking for 2 over 3x, but I'm looking for y is greater than. So that's not true. 2y is greater than 3x when I add the 3x over. 2y, so now I'm dividing by 2, and I get y is greater than 3 over 2x. Again, I'm looking for 2/3, so this is going to narrow me down to choice 4. Let's see why. I add over the 2x, I get 3y is greater than 2x. Divide by 3, and I get my inequality, y is greater than 2/3 x. So choice 4 is the answer to number 3. Moving on. Number 4 says which ordered pair is not in the solution set. So I'm looking for an ordered pair here that when plugged into one or both of these inequalities does not make it true. So the answer here comes out to be choice 2. And the reason is when you plug in 4, 3 into the second inequality, so I'm plugging in 3 for y, less than or equal to 3 times 4 for x, minus 2, I get 3 is less than or equal to 12 minus 2. 3 is less than or equal to 10. So, it's correct in the second inequality. It's when I plug it into the first inequality, is 3 greater than negative 1/2 x, which is 4, plus 5. I get 3 is greater than negative 2 plus 5, which gives me an inequality of 3 being greater than 3, and that's not true. 3 is equal to 3, but it's not greater than it. So even though 4, 3 checked in the second inequality, it did not check in the first inequality, so it's not in the solution set of the system. Question 5 asks, which point here lies in the solution set of the system of inequalities? So if I take a look at each point, 7, 0, if I go over 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, right away I can see that that point does lie in the double shaded area. So it actually comes out to be choice 1. But let's just see why the others don't work. 3, 0 does appear to almost look like it's in the solution, but because this intersection point is an intersection between a dashed line and a solid line, that would not be in the solution set. 0, 7 is the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be in the solution set of one inequality, not both. And negative 3, 5 is not in the solution set of either inequality. So that's why that is choice 1.
Okay, taking a look at question number 6, we want to read very carefully to figure out what each piece means. So a cell phone charges a base fee of $62. So if you're talking about a base fee, that's really your initial amount or your y-intercept value. So the 62 should be alone in the equation. It's either choice 3 or choice 4. Now, an overage charge of $30 per gigabyte of data that exceeds 2 gigabytes. So that means that if you go over 2 gigabytes, you could charge this amount. So you want to take the equation where the 30 is being multiplied by anything over 2. So if the g value is anything bigger than 2, then it would get multiplied by 30. So the correct answer would be choice 4. Taking a look at number 7. The cost of an adult ticket is $3. So since adult is represented by A, 3 should be multiplied by the A. Okay. And the cost of a student ticket is $1.50. So since that's represented by S, students should be multiplied by $1.50. Now the cost of an adult ticket, of all the adult tickets plus the cost of student tickets should be added together. So the correct expression for that would be choice 3. Taking a look at number 8, you would want to try to write 2 equations. Rowan's equation and Jonah's equation. So Rowan has $50 in his savings jar and is putting $5 in every week. So if we let y equal the total cost and x equal the number of weeks, your equation would look like this. Jonah has $10 in his own jar and is putting in $15 every week. So again, y is my total cost. X is my number of weeks. So it would be 15x plus 10. So now let's look at the choices. Rowan's graph has a steep Rowan's slope is 5, Jonah's slope is 15. 5 is not as steep as 15. Rowan's graph always lies above Jonah's. Since these lines are not parallel, meaning they don't have the same slope, one is not always going to lie above the other. Taking a look at choice 3, Jonah's graph is steeper than Rowan's. Well, Jonah's has a slope of 15 and Rowan's has a slope of 5, so yes, that is correct. The higher the number, the steeper the slope. Taking a look at 9, b equals 1/2 at squared. You're trying to solve for a, and that is expressed in terms of v and t. So what that means is your answer is going to have a v and a t in it, but you're trying to get the a by itself. So the first thing I would do would be to try to get rid of this coefficient of 1/2. So if you multiplied by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2, what would happen is that would cancel out on the right-hand side of the equation. So 2v equals at squared. So since you're trying to get the a alone, you should realize that the a and the t squared are being multiplied. So the opposite operation of multiplication is division. So if you divide both sides by t squared, you would get a equals 2v over t squared, choice 2. Looking at number 10, Biceps RX charges $70 and as their one-time membership fee and a monthly charge of $10. Okay, so Biceps RX monthly fee is $10 plus 70. Okay, so X is number of months here. And you know what, we can call this y. Y is representing the total cost. We're just going to label this with a b so we know that's biceps are us. And then we also have Deltoids. We'll charge a one-time membership fee of $25, but you will have to pay $25 per month. So the total cost will be $25 a month plus your one-time fee. What you want to know after how many months they'll cost the same. So if we're trying to figure out when they're going to cost the same, we're going to set them to equal to 10x plus 70 with 25x plus 25. And now you would want to solve the equation for these. Subtract 10x from both sides. And subtract 25. So 15x equals 45. And if you divided both sides by 15, you get that your x value is 3. So the correct answer to question 10 rather, is choice 3.
Okay, so for question 11, we're being asked to graph this inequality. So the first thing I need to do in terms of graphing would be to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 2x, both sides of my inequality, and I get y is greater than negative 2x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to start graphing this using slope and y-intercept. So I have a y-intercept of 1, and my slope is negative 2. So I'm going to go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. And if I want to plot a few more points, I could go up 2 to the left 1. Now, because this is a greater than sign, it's going to be a dashed line. So you want to use a straight edge ruler and draw your dashed line. Okay, you have arrows. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Now I need to finish this by shading. It's an inequality. I need to make sure I shade on one side using a test point. So I'm going to plug in the point 0, 0, since it's not on my line. And I get, in the original, 2 times 0 plus 0, is that greater than 1? So is 0 greater than 1? No, that's false. So that means I'm going to shade away from the point 0, 0, so I'm shading in this direction of my line, of the line. Okay, for number 12, we're being given this equation, M with W equals 56 minus W over 120. W is the weight of the car in pounds, and M is the fuel efficiency in miles per gallon. The first thing I'm asked to do is evaluate M of 3,000. So 3,000 is my W value. So when I plug in 3,000 for W, I get 56 minus 3,000 divided by 120, which comes out to be 31. For the next part of this question, it's asking me to solve the equation M of W equals 21. So in the first part, I was given W, and I was asked to solve for M of W. In this piece, I'm being given M of W, which is really acting as our Y. So I need to take my original equation and set it equal to 21. So 21 is my M of W. It's equal to 56 minus W over 120. And now I need to solve for W. So I'm going to start by subtracting 56. And I get negative 35 is equal to negative W over 120. I want to get rid of that division of 120, so I'm going to multiply by 120 over 1, both sides. And I get negative 4,200 is equal to negative W, but I want W, so I divide by negative 1 to get a final value of positive 4,200 for W.
Okay, taking a look at 13, you had to write an algebraic inequality. Some people wrote 2 inequalities, so be careful. This means you're only writing one inequality to represent the situation. And they're telling you R stands for number of hours Sarah would need to work at the restaurant, and B stands for the number of hours that Sarah would need to work at the bank. So you don't need to write let statements because the variables are defined for you. So if she makes $8.25 working at the restaurant, we would start by writing down $8.25 times R plus, so because she makes more money working at the bank, so the addition. $10.50 for every hour she works at the bank, and we want to know how long she would have to work to make no less than 400. So no less than really is the opposite of less than. So if less than means this, no less than means the sign goes the other way and is exclusive. So that would be your inequality. Now they're telling you Sarah works 15 hours at the restaurant. So that means R equals 15. So in your inequality, you're plugging in 15 for R. And then you want to simplify. So 825 times 15 is 123.75. You want to isolate your variable, which is b. So I'm going to subtract 123.75 from both sides. So 1050b is greater than or equal to 276.25. Now when you divide both sides by 1050, b is greater than or equal to this irrational number, 26.309 ... You need that ... because that number continues. That doesn't answer the question, because you wanted to know how many full hours she needs to work at the bank. So if she needs to work 26.309 ... hours, she would really have to work 27 full hours. You have to state that. Question 14 uses distributive properties start to get 4 sevenths x plus 4 sevenths times 14 over 20 simplified would be 2 fifths equals 20. So you want to isolate the x, so I'm going to subtract 2 fifths. You can express your answer to the subtraction of 20 minus 2 fifths as a decimal or as a fraction. So we can write that as a decimal to 19.6. You want to isolate the x, so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 4 sevenths, which is 7 over 4. So x equals 34. Okay, so for question 15, the last question, we're being asked to write a system of inequalities and then graph them. So we're being told Edith babysits for X hours a week after school at a job that pays $4 an hour. And then she also accepted a job that pays $8 an hour as a library assistant, working Y hours a week. So the first thing I might want to do is take a look at my graph. Notice how we have our X and Y axes. I already know what X and Y are, so I'm going to start labeling. X is my number of hours that Edith babysits. And Y is my number of hours that Edith works at the library. Okay, so now I know what my X and Y variables are. She will work both jobs, and she's able to work no more than 15 hours a week due to school commitments, and she wants to earn at least $80 a week working a combination of both jobs. So now I need to write a system of inequalities to represent this situation. So if I just take a look at the first piece, she can work no more than 15 hours. If I take her X hours, number of hours that she works babysitting, plus Y hours of working that she's doing as a library assistant, it could be no more than 15 hours, so she has to have less than or equal to 15 hours a week. That's our first inequality. The second inequality means she wants to make at least $80 a week. So now I need to take the money into play here. So $4 an hour is what she makes babysitting, so 4x, plus she makes $8 an hour as a library assistant, so plus 8y, and she wants to make at least $80, meaning she could make more, but she'd be happy if she made at least 80, so greater than or equal to. So now, in order to graph these inequalities, I'm going to need to take both of them and solve for y. So in my first inequality, if I subtract x on both sides, I get y is less than or equal to negative x plus 15. And in my second inequality, I would subtract 4x. I got 8y is greater than or equal to negative 4x plus 80. Divide by 8. And I get y is greater than or equal to negative 4 over 8 simplifies to be negative 1/2 x. 80 divided by 8 gives me plus 10. So now I'm going to take a minute to graph both of these. So I have a y-intercept in my first inequality of 15, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm going to plot my y-intercept, and the slope here is negative 1.
So down 1 over 1, down 1 to the right 1. Okay, I'm going to use, you should be using a ruler at this point to trace your line. Okay, now I'm going to label this line with the original, and notice how I did not put arrows on this line. Since my x and y values both represent hours, I can't have a negative amount of hours, so I can't put an arrow on either side because x or y would become negative on one side of that line. Now I'm going to graph my next line, which has a y-intercept of 10 and a slope of negative 1/2. So I'm going to go down 1 to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2. Again, use some straight edge here so that I can sketch my line. And make sure that I label this line as well with the original, which was 4x plus 8y is greater than or equal to 80. So now I need to go and shade both of these inequalities. Notice how they're also both solid lines because I had a less than or equal to and a greater than or equal to symbol for both inequalities. So I'm going to use the point 0, 0, which just so that we can see, since we're in the positive quadrant 1 here, 0, 0 is down here, just so we know where we're going to shade when we test this point. So I'm going to first test 0, 0 in the first inequality, which was x plus y is less than or equal to 15. 0 plus 0 is less than or equal to 15. This is a true inequality. 0 is less than or equal to 15. So for my first inequality, x plus y, I'm going to shade towards 0, 0. Just a little bit like there, over. Go. And for my second inequality, I'm going to plug in 0, 0. So 4 times 0 plus 8 times 0 is greater than or equal to 80. Is 0 greater than or equal to 80? No, this is false. So I'm going to shade away from 0, 0. So I'm going to shade above this line. Okay, so we can see that the double shaded area is in here. And now I want to scroll to the bottom and make sure I answer the full question. So it's asking me to determine and state one combination of hours that will allow Edith to earn at least $80 while working no more than 15 hours. So picking any point in this double shaded area would be correct, so your answers will vary, but let's say I just pick 1, 11. I need to state it, so any combination of a point that would be in that shaded area would get you credit there.